Another important concept that you will need for Program 4 is how to calculate the sum of a series of numbers that are entered by the user in a form. So that'll be part of what you need to do for Program 4, Programming Assignment 4. And so I was going to show a simple example of how to build something like that. Okay, so I've started with an empty MU frame. I removed the MU panel. So here we have the designer with nothing there. Notice for the J frame, what I can do is the title of the J frame. I'm going to go in here and get rid of Samantha Student, and we'll say, well, I'll just say change the whole thing here. Inside the string, I'm going to say example of a sum of a series of numbers. Okay. Okay, so that's the title that will be on the window frame then. Okay, let's just make a very simple thing here. Let me put a label in here. Right click, edit text. I'm going to say enter a number, please. Okay, with a label, I don't have to give it a name. You could change the variable name, but I don't need to because I'm never going to be changing that. Next, I'm going to take a text field. I'll line it up here, and then right-click, edit the text. I don't want anything to be in here. Now, when I do that, it kind of collapses, so I want to stretch it out so it's a little bit bigger. And then I'll right-click, change variable name, and I'm going to call this the input field. Okay. And then I'll put a button here which will say edit the text, add to the total, and I can change the variable name to the add to total button. Okay, then I want to display my answers in a text area, so I'll move a text area down here and resize it so it's nice and big. Click in the area, and now that it says JText area, I can right click and change the variable name. I'm going to call this the output area. Okay, so there I have a simple interface. What I could do is with these, sometimes with labels, the text is kind of small. I can go over here in the properties area and change the font. I could use bold and maybe 18 point. Makes it a little bit bigger, and I could also change the foreground color. I don't know, nice institutional Mount Union purple would be good. That's a little too dark. Okay, so that's, or blue, whatever. Okay, now when I run this, you see it says enter a number, please. I can say I don't know, 3333, and I click the button all day. I haven't done anything yet, so it won't do anything. It won't do. But at least you can see sort of what it looks like. Okay, now to if I want to add to the total, I can double click on the button, and I get an add to total button action performed. Okay. So what I need to do, think about a calculator. How does a calculator work? Let me pull up the Windows calculator here, and you'll see, well, that's kind of big, but. Okay, so in any event, the way the calculator works is if I type in a number like 45 and hit plus, now I can't write the entire expression because I don't know how many numbers the user is going to enter. So what I end up doing is whatever is entered, like if I enter 2 and hit plus, okay, the previous sum, 45, is added to that number and I get 47. And then 9 plus that would be 56, and 11 would be 67, etc. So the idea is that what's displayed, or the total, is a running total only of what was entered so far, because I don't know how many numbers are going to be entered. Then after the last number is entered, the running total becomes the final total. Well, to illustrate that, up here in my program, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a variable in my MU frame. Okay, it's going to be an integer, and I'm going to call it total. Okay, and what was the total when let's run the calculator again. Okay, what's the total before I start entering any numbers? Well, I haven't had any numbers, so the total should be 0. So I want to initialize here in the constructor method of MUFrame. My total variable should be initialized to 0. Store a 0 in there to begin with. Okay. All right, so that sets up the total variable. Now, in my action performed here, okay, what do I want to do? Well, the first thing I'm going to do, now remember, this is what's activated when the user clicks on the button. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is retrieve the contents of my input field. Okay, so I'll say string user input equals, I called it input field dot, and then the method we use is get text. Okay, so that retrieves what the user typed into the input field, stores it in this string variable. Okay, well, I can't add that to the total because I need an integer. So I need to convert then. I need to say convert, I'll just call, or say integer num. And the conversion I will use, since it's an integer, is integer dot parse int. And I'll say user input. Okay. So I've retrieved the text from the field and I converted it into a number. And now, think about the calculator again. Okay, this is the old total. If I type in the number 54 and hit plus, it's going to it's going to take the old total plus this new number, and that's the new total. Okay, so if the new number is 10, it's going to be 54 plus 10 is 64. So the idea is that the new value of total should be set equal to the old value of total plus num. So you get this. Remember how assignment statements work. We do the right-hand side first. So take the current value of total plus the new number that I just entered, and that sum should be the new value of total. Okay, and then I'm just going to print a message here, output area, append. I'm going to say num was added to the total. And then a backslash n, two backslash n's to move 2 lines down in the output. So the next time the button's clicked, the output will not be on the same line. We'll be skipping some lines. Okay, so retrieve the value, convert it to an integer, add it to the total, and then print this. Now I'm purposely not printing the total yet. Okay. So here we go. Enter a number, please. So 55 was added to the total, 10 was added to the total, and 4 was added to the total, 111. Oops, gotta click up there again. Okay. So what's the total? Well, I'm not printing it yet, but internally the system knows what the total is. Okay. So I'm going to add another button here to display what the total is. Okay, back to the designer, and I'll grab a button, drop it here, right click and edit text and say display total so far. Okay, right click, change the variable name to the display total button, and then double click. Now in this particular button I can say, let me get rid of this, scroll down around here. Okay, so here I am. Right now, when I'm at line 151, the user has clicked on the display total button, and so then I want to, in the output area, append, and I'm going to, \T is the tab character, so that'll tab in a certain number of spaces, and I can say total entered so far equals, quote, plus total. And then I'm going to put 2 \N's. Okay. And if I would run this, okay, now I say 55, 10, oops, 4, 111, display the total so far, 180. So that's 160. That's 65 69 plus 111 is 180. If I add 20, total so far is 200. Okay. Add 2,000, 2,200. Okay. Now, if we have the total, it's very easy to get the average. Okay. Because to find the average, you have to find the total and then divide by the number of items that were added into the sum. So what I would do to find the total here is go up to the top of my MU panel here, and I'm going to also declare another variable. I'm going to count how many numbers were entered. Okay. Now, before I've entered any numbers, the count would be 0. Right? I haven't entered anything. Okay. And now, don't get seasick. I'm going to scroll fast. So now I'm going to go back. Or actually, the faster way to do it would be go to the designer. And then let me double click on Add to the Total. So here's my Add to Total button action performed. Now, every time I add num to the total, what I also want to do is add 1 to count. So I could say count equals count plus 1, or I could say count plus plus. Okay, either way. And so now that number was added to the total, and I could even display my count, I guess. Let me do this. Plus count. Have been entered. Okay, and then 2 \n. Okay. What did I do wrong? Oh, no semicolon at the end. Okay. So we can run the program, and now if I type in 55, 1 value entered so far, 10, 2 values have been entered, 4, 3 values have been entered. The total so far is 69, 111, and the total is 180, etc. Okay? So, now I know how many values have been entered. I'm keeping a count. So what I could now do is go to the designer and add yet another button. And I could say, edit the text, display average so far. Okay. And so, let me double click on that. Oops, and see how it says J button 1 action performed? I forgot to rename my button. So I want to make sure I change the variable name. Let's call this the display average button. Now when I double click, it should rename that method. Yes, display average button. Okay, so the way to display the average would be to say output area append \t average of all values entered is plus, and then the average, oh, maybe I should have a variable here. Nuts. Let's say integer avg equals, and the average would simply be the total divided by the count. And so here I can say avg \n. Okay. So we run it. And enter a number, please. 55. Add to the total. Total so far is 55. Average so far is 55. 4. Oh no, 10. Didn't I have 10? Add to the total. Total so far is 65. Average is 32. Shouldn't it be 32.5? What if I say 3? Now the total is 68. Shouldn't that be 60 or 22.666667? Okay, so it is working, except that what's going on is I don't get any decimal part because I declared average as an integer. And so this division of an integer by an integer is being carried out and is chopping off any remainder or any decimal part to it. So if I really want a decimal part to my average, I want to say double here. And then I'm going to force this calculation to be carried out in double precision. If I multiply by 1.0, that converts, so and multiplication and division are the same level of precedence. So it'll do this operation first. Multiplying anything by 1 doesn't change the value, but because it's a double times an integer, that numerator will now be a double precision value. Double divided by an integer gives me a double, and it will give me decimal places. So now, try again, 55, and then what did I do, 10? So the total so far is 65 and the average 32.5. And then if I do 3, I have 3 values. 68 is the total and the average is 22.666666. That's almost 2/3. There's a little bit of a rounding error way out there. Okay? So, to reiterate, okay, when you are entering things, if you want to add to a total, you use this kind of technique. And then for average, you need to keep track of how many numbers were entered. And then when you want to display the average, you can do that calculation. And if you want decimal places, you should do it with this technique. Okay, good luck.